turn your mic on.
Good evening. I'd like to Port of Johnstown Management Committee meeting, January 23rd, 2025 at 5 p.m. I'd like to amend the agenda. I would like to call H, then the presentation and audit, to 4, delegation presentation. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Mr. Ward, seconded by Mr. Smell. Questions, comments?
That's the only change.
That's the only change. Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you for that. Any disclosure, pecuniary interests, and general nature thereof? Thank you. Number 4, delegations presentation. Welcome aboard for your first meeting. Leslie, take it away. You're on.
Thank you very much, Chair Dillabaugh and committee. We're very pleased this evening to present to you the annual report, of which I can take no credit. Kudos is owed to obviously the team and our staff team for putting in all the effort in 2024. And I had the honor of kind of just formatting this into a new template. So again, kudos to the staff. We had another successful year. I think all can be summarized on the second page under the highlights. Shows you the total cargo processed, the total throughput of grain, which is up almost 50,000 metric ton from 2023. Our capital spending was just over 7 million, and our total surplus unaudited right now is at 5.38 million. We had the highest grain movement on vessel on record, and there's just a few key stats that we think are interesting. 6 boats went to Ireland, 3 to Great Britain, 2 within Canada, 2 to Italy, and 13 to other elevators. A lot of the other information in the report will not be new to you, as you've received monthly reports from our team. So I guess I'd open it up for questions at this time. Jeff is here and happy to answer any questions on maintenance, as well as Rhonda on finance and Mike on operations.
Floor is open. Any questions, comments? Frank, you make sure you wave or I'll miss you.
Sure. Just my only comment was I thought it was a very good report. I thought the pictures and the like, I always distribute this to the other cottages, for example, along Windmill Road. And I think they'll really appreciate this. It puts the performance of the port in a very good context, and it's easy to read. So compliments to the staff, to Leslie, to Robert, for everyone in terms of the input. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Please. Yes, go ahead, Ms. General Manager.
I just wanted to make Jeff and I were discussing today, and he does have a few key stats that I think would be helpful in addition to the maintenance report, if you don't mind if he just goes over those.
Under this report?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's just you guys are all hot, ladies and gentlemen, all tired to read this.
Can you give us a page number on that if it's here, please?
It's the maintenance report.
Might be different from our.
So 21 pages in. That helps. Over halfway through.
Page numbers.
And I do that.
Yeah.
If anybody on your on the computer.
Everybody find it okay?
Yeah. Does everybody have it? Okay.
I just some figures I wanted to throw in there. I mentioned to Leslie that since 2009, the units that we maintain and service has grown from 72 to 160 with the same staff. So the guys do a heck of a job. And that's not including the dust system, which is many, many points, and 125 aerators as well, which we try to service routinely. The annex has 172 points before the installation of the new dryer and conveyors. So just some numbers, just give some perspective. How much we've grown since 2009.
Thank you for that. Jeff. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, people? On the presentation? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
So we're doing the entire pre-audited financial statements, right? Yep, okay. So, bear with me. So worth note, I think, is that of the total number was 11,076,112. 9.2 million of that alone is green services. Just think that that's a worthwhile number. The question that I have in reaching the 9.2, and Leslie, I know that may be difficult, or GM, sorry, not Leslie. That might be difficult for you to articulate where the full 9.2 came up, but is there is there any excess inventory that was sold off to achieve the number 9.2?
Maybe Rhonda can help us, or
Yes.
Do we have a volume number, Rhonda?
I'm gonna say just shy of 3,000.
3,000 metric tons?
Yeah, I don't think it was quite that high, but it was in around there.
Do we know at what dollar value it was sold per metric ton?
400 and something. I don't know the exact amount.
Guessing around 460.
Yeah,
Around 460? Okay. And
so
okay.
it would be the, if you're looking, are you looking
I'm
at the
trying to find
year-end
it in-
financial?
I'm trying to find it in there, but I couldn't figure out. where it
Yeah,
was.
in like in this, the 3-page one that was at the end.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
It's the 1.654 for dollar value.
So under the soybean
Soybean dryer.
drying,
Yeah.
that's the amount that was sold off under the excess.
That's the value, yeah.
Okay, all right. So the value of that is 1.6. We sold off 1.6.
Yes, and you can see in 2023, we sold the same tonnage, but the price difference was probably higher by $200 a ton.
600, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that reflects basically the same amount we sold off. We don't have an accurate amount of how much we have left, right? Of excess to sell off.
It's it'll be just north of 2,000 tons.
That's the amount that's left.
Yeah.
Okay. And, okay, so under sale of grain on that same area further down, the
Mhm.
expectation was 162. We didn't sell anything off. Does that relate back to grain that we would have sold off to cover off for spoilage?
Possibly, or, well, yeah, that would be for shortages, yeah, because then you would see the opposite in the expenses under the grain handling loss.
Yeah.
One sort of offsets the other. We just have to show it in both. There is small amounts that we didn't do last year for the dust sale, but that's very minimal. The
Okay.
majority of it is to offset any shortages.
Any shortages? And so the 2,000 metric tons that's there would represent 1.2, $1.1 million worth. Higher than the 162 needed to offset. Is that a place where, like, is it responsible to keep the 2,000 metric tons?
I mean, I think there's always a risk, right? When you're holding 100,000 tons of grain.
Yeah.
It's nice to have something there that we can use. I don't know if that's the number or not, but
Okay. No, it's simple. It's just
yeah.
trying to run it through my
Yeah,
head. I just,
yeah.
I think where I'm going with it is
I mean,
ultimately, in the end of the day, I think we need a policy
I
regarding
mean,
it, but
the dust has barely settled from us loading. We loaded right up to the last minute of the last day to get the boats out here. So now we're going through and bin sounding and looking at our inventories to see what needs to be adjusted and what we need to do to make up for, we may have some wheat loss somewhere. I'm assuming we would have some wheat loss.
Yeah, there'll
We
definitely
may
be
have to
some
do some
loss.
trading, yeah.
yeah, okay. You can jump in anytime, Clint. I've got a bunch more, but
No, it's
Sure.
good. I was just gonna say 2,000 metric tons of beans at about 450 is about 900K.
900K.
Very good.
Okay, in regard to, I'm always asking questions. I hope you're okay with me continuing, Chair, sorry.
Don't stop now.
Okay. It's compliment to staff for sure. I'm, constantly talking about management of hours and management of, overtime, those sort of things. So, in relation to, we were a little bit over the 2023, but considering we had renegotiated a contract and that was reflected in the increases for that, the difference there is minimal. And I think managing to get those, listening to what we asked and our concerns, that's reflected in that 3 million from an actual. So I would say compliments, it's down considerably from what the budget was, even though it's up a tiny bit. But it's lower in overtime and considering that there's an increase due to wages being, like a pay increase. So good. That's good. Moving down on that list though, question on the propane. So the 75,942, I assume the only thing that uses propane at the port is the new corn dryer. I'm going to call it the corn dryer today. But I don't see a number in revenue anywhere that can relate back to the cost of that. So
19,000 metric ton that we dried.
You'd have some of that portion would be in the grain drying revenue.
mhm.
It's not split between corn and wheat and anything else we dried. So
I think my question, then I'll lead it a little different. So do we know from a plus minus standpoint? I know it's a new business. I know we're trying to create a new business, but it has to have a return on investment. So I'm wondering if that's a negative return, a neutral return, or whether there's a positive this year in the investment. And
I mean, we'll certainly get that number for you. I really would think it'd be hard to be a positive number this year, just because we commissioned it, as the corn drying came in and we had many deficiencies that we had to fix.
Yeah.
We probably dried corn a little too long this year, just because we advertised we were putting a dryer in, and we're still drying corn right now. We just actually basically told them to stop, we're not bringing in more wet corn in. It's just not feasible to dry corn at this time of year, there's a reason they're bringing it to the ports, because they don't want to run their own dryers. So we basically just said we're not going to bring it to work as a volume so low. I think we've put about 18,000 tons through the dryer, which is a higher number than I expected it to be for sure. So I think, we can see that we can definitely utilize it, but we just have to get better at it, and getting better at it is using it. So it's
that's
it's
part,
a big learning curve this year for us.
yeah, I was going to say that's part of the learning curve. So we'll see it broken out a little bit different, and then we'll see sort of a case as what we can expect for
definitely
next
need to
year.
separate that for sure, because I agree with you. It's just into a big pool of fund right now, and you don't know what's what. So it's
Similar question. I just don't think.
Sure, yeah, jump in.
Sorry, through the chair. Thank you very much. So on that, I was going to ask a similar question. That 75K, is that because we also had to fill up the tanks though as well?
the
So it's
tanks are
not
full
just,
right now.
yeah, so the 75K is we had to fill up the tanks from empty
That's right.
for the first time. So I think that's part of the dollars
Yeah.
we're seeing there, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'd like to follow up on that myself so we did 75,000 worth of propane.
Yeah.
Comes out, we did 19,000 metric ton, comes out to about $3, I guess, a ton. Is that right, roughly? Do we charge the farmer for that, or how do we recoup? So they're paying for that anyways, is that right?
Yeah. It's part of that big number, but we just don't know exactly what that number is.
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so
We'll-
it is
we'll figure
paid,
that out.
yeah, okay. So it's not as if we're giving them $3 a ton.
It's not for free.
No, okay. I knew it wasn't for free, but I just want to make sure that's how we're doing it. It's charged back to the farmer.
100%. Yeah.
Thank-
It's charged when it's brought in.
Yep, good. Whatever the moisture is, blah, blah, blah. Good, thanks. Go ahead,
Um,
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and I think I get that they charge it back to the farmer, the cost of it. I just like there's a dollar value that's applied. I just want to make sure that whether we're operating it as a service to them and it doesn't matter if it ends up being a negative, line in, revenues versus expenses, or whether we're doing it as a business where at the end, revenue is going to exceed expenses. I think that's the part that matters to me. So that's sort of where I was going with asking
Certainly.
for the more information
Yeah.
eventually. I know you're not going to have it
Yeah.
this year, but I think as we move forward 2 and 3 years into it, I think, we need to see it have a payback,
Yeah.
or we're just going to have to market it as a service
Yeah.
and limit the cost. Honorarium was $6,000 less than budgeted. The line item in the actual for 2023 was 23.5 for 2024 actual. Like, how is it possible that we have a 20 or 6,000 less than what we budgeted and we're 2,500 less than than what 2023 was?
Part of it, we had no meeting in August or December.
That's it.
And then if anybody missed the odd meeting.
Right. Okay. So honorarium, if you miss a meeting, you don't actually still,
Right.
you don't actually still pay it. It's not part of your commitment, and you don't get it. If you don't show up, you don't get paid.
Right.
Okay. Yep. Fair enough. And I think the last is right on budget for overall revenues delivered 450K and expenses savings. Wonderful net total of just under 5.4. So I guess congratulations, Robert, Leslie, Rhonda, and all of the senior staff at the port. To me, it looks on this document as a fantastic year with like really close to record numbers in revenue. And again, the diligence on managing the hours appears to me at first glance to be fantastic, in the expenses. So great news. I don't see anything negative about this at all. So well done. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
The only other question I had is that
Yes.
we did have this as an action item. So do you prefer to actually do the motion further on in the action reports, or would you like to do that now?
I need a motion.
I just don't know what the motion actually is. Can you read it out to GM?
So the recommendation is that the Port Management Committee receives the 2024 annual report, and this includes receiving the financial statement as per bylaw 2023-14 Schedule A, and that these financial statements be submitted and interpreted to council.
I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Mr. Mayor, seconded by Mr. Ward. Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on, number 5, I need a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the previous Port of Johnstown Committee meeting on November 18th, 2024. Moved by Mr. Mayor, seconded by Mr. Martell. Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
there is one very small edit, number 6. As much as these minutes are precious to us, I think that actually should read previous rather than precious.
Thank you. Good catch. Thanks, Frank. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Business arising from the previous Port Management Committee meeting, if any. Q. No discussion items. Number 8. A, grain operations report. Mr. Mike Moulton, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The grain operations report for December 2024. The overall grain inventory ended at 93,038 metric tons. We certainly kind of ran hard and kind of slid into home right at the end. The vessel schedules got turned upside down, and truck availability dropped off to get freight into the port. So we we're shooting for 1,000,000 tons and we came up just a little short. The inventory was looks the very same as it does, you know, every other year. The traffic for December, we received 56,977 metric tons by truck. We shipped 5,985 tons back out by truck. We shipped 89,692 tons grain on vessel, and still no rail. The vessels at berth were the Florence Spirit for soybeans, the CSL Assiniboine for soybeans, Blair McKeel for soybeans, and the Slavanka and the Federal Bearing came in after Christmas for corn. Incidents, we had a very good year, just unfortunately, we just had that one recordable. And the labor hours, of course, were down against previous year. Again, the volume was down just a tick, and we were closed the week of Christmas. And quality, we had an excellent inspection at a AAA. So we had very good month and very good year. And that's it for the operations report.
Thank you, Mr. Moulton. Any questions, comments on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, Mike, or Mr. Moulton, sorry. Just because you mentioned it via rail, as far as rail goes and shipping grain, did we completed, I guess, qualified for production, I guess, our rail, what do you call that piece of equipment? The dispenser into the cargo containers, is that done now, or is that?
It's not, no,
No, okay.
we're probably about a month away from that being feasible to start. Yeah, it's, I think it's gonna come in this week and installed next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Right.
we're looking forward to it and certainly a lot of interest in it.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'd like to make a note that Ms. Hernandez arrived at 5:20. Welcome. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we're going to move on to 8B maintenance report. Jeffrey? Thank you.
I always feel like I'm in trouble when somebody calls me Jeffrey, but thanks for that, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I know how you feel.
Does anybody have questions rather than me reading through this step by step? Because it's, if you do, I'll answer them to the best of my ability, or would you rather I read through it?
No, has anybody got any questions, comments? Anything? Are you sure, Mr. Ward?
It was more of a curiosity, I guess. So it's one of these things, where, I was talked to somebody earlier before the meeting started, and it's like, you should come by and sit with us for a day or so. And maybe that's where, that would be a helpful thing. But this removal of the discharge chute from the discharge of ship loading conveyor, yada, yada, yada. That sounds like a big deal. Is that a big operation? you
It
have to
was,
do?
it was 2 days.
Yeah.
What
okay.
happened to the last ship that was loaded? They cut us off before we had the scale and the belt emptied.
Oh, okay.
So the only place to discharge that grain is to the vessel, or take that discharge chute off and put it on the floor, and from there take it with wheelbarrows and put it into a bin. So that's what we had.
That's fun
It's a
stuff.
big job. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, I saw that and I thought I don't think we've ever seen that one before. And so that was a unique one. So
It is
okay.
new.
Okay, good. Well, I should have come down that day.
It's, that's,
Next time we'll call you.
and Mr. Ward, by the way, that gentleman didn't want you to come down there to sit. Okay,
Fair enough.
you get the work gloves on. So just so if you do come down, it's called, you get the work gloves on. Go ahead, Mr. Smell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a curiosity question, Jeffrey. I was reading the report. It said that, how do you free up the VP conveyors when they're frozen? How often do they freeze? And is it a big job?
It's not a big job. It takes time and a few guys to do it. What happens is, I hate to say climate change, but it is. Warm days, cold nights, any moisture at all, conveyor belts especially the newer ones on the annex, there is no return rollers on them. They run along the bottom of the structure, they freeze. So you have to get in there with bars, pry it up and get it going again.
Oh, you don't use heat or nothing?
Sorry?
You don't use heat?
No. Yeah, it's unfortunately the nature of the beast. Yeah. And the same with some of the drag conveyors at top, and even the new drag conveyor from the exit of the dryer. Although it's a chain drag, it still freezes based on warm, cold, moisture.
Go ahead, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. I'll go with Jeff. Jeff, why did they cut you off? Why did they cut the transportation of the grain to the ship before you were able to clean out?
Mike could answer that better than I
Okay,
can.
sure.
It's, I don't know. It was just one of those things where it was the last vessel of the year and we were down to the last minute of the last hour and we were having some trouble with ballast and it was -15 out that night and it was just the pilots were there and it was, we're done, going. Okay, so we just pulled our spouts off and cast the lines off and they left.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, and we were happy to see them go. Yeah, yeah. It was 4 days of fight. Yeah.
And honestly, like, I wasn't there, but I have been there in the past.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a frustration thing between the crew and the ship, first mate or the captain and our guys.
Yeah. Just they were, I mean, they're trying to get their ballast set and their pumps are freezing. And I mean, it was just too cold that night.
Sure,
It was
fair.
a disaster. Yeah.
Fair enough. So it begs the question, if it wasn't the last ship of the year, would you have left all that commodity?
Oh, they
product?
wouldn't, and I mean,
In-
they wouldn't,
in
we
the
were
channel.
trying to beat the lock closing rate.
Right.
So we would have definitely put it on.
Okay.
It's not something, that's not a practice we want to do.
No, I understand that. I mean, I can appreciate it, but
Yeah.
if they cut you off or another ship had cut you off, would you be able to load that grain into the next ship? Or would you still have had to go?
If it was the same commodity,
days.
yeah.
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 Okay.
It's
It was,
just
it was
bad.
just the situation at
Yeah,
the time,
bad
like
timing.
Mike says, they were trying to beat the locks closing for the season.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
It was actually, I'm gonna brag on our guys a little bit. That was at 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd started that ship at 8 o'clock in the morning and we worked till 10. And the guys had actually stayed later that night to make sure that we got as much grain on that ship as we could. Because they had a minimum quantity they had to hit so they could sail to Ireland. So I mean, it was just, I mean, we were basically trying to scoop it onto the boat to get them out of there. It was big effort from everybody.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Capital projects report. Leslie?
Sure, thank you. So there's a lot more green this time on the capital project list, so we're happy to have concluded a lot of the work. Anything remaining in yellow is coming through to be proposed for 2025, except probably the first item, which is the paving. What we will be bringing forward to you probably in February as part of the capital project is to do some pre-planning design work for a new track shed, which potentially could be relocated to some of the area that would be paving. So we think it's kind of redundant to pave an area where we might the following year want to break ground on that. So we'll probably be looking to defer that project.
Questions, comments on our capital budget? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no, just a compliment again to staff. You know, that was a very aggressive budget at 10 million to, you know, kind of deliver into. And I mean, all but 2.3 million of it, I think, is been delivered on and forecasted to be used up for the most part next year. So I think that's, you know, that's job well done on the budget part. I don't know that I've seen in my time that much work get done. So that was almost $8 million in work done. It's fantastic. It's good.
Mr. Ward, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, no, I sort of echo the mayor's comments. I was pleased to see that a lot of these items that are on here that were completed. And we're just looking at the ones that say complete right now, that we came in under budget. So I think a good job on that as well. It wasn't just that we got the 8 million done, but we got, you know, our 7.76 million done. But, you know, we have some that came in like 25,000 or 20, somewhere basically 60% or 65% or something like that of the target of the budget you'd set. So good job on that as well, I guess, on watching the costs as you were doing it. So thank you.
Just to, I have one comment, and these ones that aren't completed will be coming back to get passed for the 2025 budget. Is that right?
Absolutely. So we'll essentially, yes, bring them forward. The ones that are already in progress, and then the ones that haven't been started will have the committee will have an opportunity to reconsider those items.
Thank you. Any other question, comments? Go ahead, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you. With regards to the ACT funding, the government portion says there's still 10%. 100,000 is not really 10%, but if there's 100K outstanding, I'll hold back till completion. When's completion slated for, and when would we likely recover that outstanding?
It is completed. We've filed all the papers in December and the final 100,000 was paid January 14th.
Okay. So it's already in,
Yeah, so it's done now. Just wasn't done in December.
okay, thank you.
But yeah.
Any other questions, comments, please? Thank you. Moving on to D, financial report. Rhonda.
Did you want me to read it or do you have any questions on it for the month of December?
Yeah, let's just go over it a little as quick as possible if you can now, Rhonda, please.
All right, our revenue for the month was 1.0104 million. It was a decrease of 762,000 compared to last year and lower than budget. Salt movement was the biggest. It was down 5 vessels from last year, and the whole grain throughput was down in December compared to last year. We kept our expenses lower than budget and lower than 2023, which ended the month with a surplus of 367,000. Our year end, our harbor services, mainly through the salt, impacted our revenues by 332,000. A good part of that shortfall was recovered with a successful 2024 harvest, which saw higher grain throughput and storage. Our year-to-date surplus has surpassed the budgeted number of 4.703 million by 682,000, which puts the port at the 3rd highest successful year since the township took over the port. Our receivables are at 1.5 million. Payables 600,000 and cash on hand is a little over 7.6. And then there's the chart on the next page of the breakdown of the differences if you have any questions.
Any questions on the breakdown of revenue and expenses? Go ahead, Ms. McCauley.
Thanks, Chair. In terms of the reduction in salt revenue, the reduction in salt traffic, is that because there was leftover inventory from 2023, so there didn't need to be as much in 2024, or did some of our cargoes go to other ports?
No, I believe it's because there was still so much left over from the previous year.
And I don't think we're going to see anything next year, Frank, if you want the truth, according to Joe from Logitech. And that's no joke unless, we have something crazy happens. He said there probably won't be any coming in.
And that's because of the amount of inventory they already have?
That's right. Across the road and out at North Gora. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, I'll say it, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I mean, I think just to highlight what Rhonda said, sorry, what the general, no, well, what Rhonda said, I'll go with that. Anyways, office manager, thank you very much. Yeah, said, I mean, we did have less revenue, it's like, about 3% less revenue, but we were right on the track as far as the net profit goes. So good job on that. Obviously, that's just the overall, just to show how good you did on managing the expenses along this. So, I think it, goes without saying, but, kudos as far as that goes. So thanks.
The nice thing is in the bottom, 7.672 cash on hand. So. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Rhonda. Moving into vessel traffic report, we have nobody besides, so do you like to do it?
I don't really have anything to add other than it's just some quick stats that were also included as part of the annual report. So unless there's any questions.
Good. Questions, comments? Anything? Very good. How about FGM report, Leslie?
Sure. So I did provide a written report in the package, but I also thought I'd like to start at our meetings as just providing a quick PowerPoint to highlight some of the points that are in the report, but also just a few different stats that will help prepare us as we launch into budget in February. So next slide. So just, this is quick. It's a 10-page PowerPoint. I just want to review our structure and our people, our priorities and compliance, and just a glimpse into the first quarter port operations. So, you know, sometimes people ask, harvest season is done. What's going on at the port? So, just quickly, this is hard to see. I can circulate this after the fact, but I just wanted you to know, you probably do know, but just a quick snapshot of our current organizational structure. So the positions that are in green are non-union, and the positions in gray are unionized positions. And then on the side, we just have the outside services that we outsource. So next slide, our people, just to recap. So we have 8 non-union positions. That next button should read 13. The 3 is bounced down, so I apologize for that. 13 union that are full-time. We have 9 union that are casuals, and included as part of that 13, we have 3, Jeff on his team has 3 skilled trades members. So there's 2 millwrights and 1 electrician, and then 2 employees out of the maintenance department are currently on long-term leave. So these are these aren't PowerPoint driven pictures. Those are faces of some of our employees that we are blessed to see every day. So I wanted to highlight those and welcome you all to come to the port anytime if you want to meet these wonderful people and or see what we're doing every day. You're more than welcome to come. Some new initiatives that were captured as part of the report. Sorry, we're just the millwright apprenticeship that we're currently working on with our union team. We've launched an employee engagement committee, so we're seeking interest. And I think I have 10 names so far of members from the union and non-union want to be part of that. So our mandate essentially for the employee engagement is just to talk about how we communicate within the organization. We'll hopefully plan some team barbecues, maybe a Christmas party, and just overall help from the front line up to the management of how we can improve our workplace culture. So happy to see engagement on that front. Earlier this month, we did a harvest debrief, and I'll take you through in a few slides just the SWOT analysis of what came out of that. There was a lot of good conversations, a lot of listening, and I think a lot of our frontline operators have a lot of great ideas to share with us on how we can improve. And as part of that report, the assistant general foreman position has been vacant since, I think it was last posted in June of 2023. So Mike and Sean have recently promoted Justin Gunter. He was our fumigator to the position of assistant general foreman. So congratulations to Justin. So this is a bit difficult to see, but as part of the harvest debrief, so the SWOT analysis. So what came out of that? Some strengths, obviously, across the board, the team thought that every year we get better and more efficient. So that's pretty incredible. We have a committed team, and I can say that the 3 months that I've been here, the team is really super. They all have the port's best interests at heart and want to be part of the future. They have a lot of great ideas. Strategic ideas from the front line that they've shared with me personally. So I look forward to involving them in the strategic plan. We are continually succeeding year after year, as evidenced in the annual report. We have routinely received positive feedback from the vessels, the brokers, and our customers. The new AgriSoft system that's connected to LV Controls does provide more accurate info, which results in less grain loss. Some weaknesses that came out, there is limited training for casual staff. So when we do hire casuals right in the middle of harvest season, it's hard for our team leads to manage their own work plus training these casuals. Obviously, we have a small maintenance team consisting of 3 members, so it's difficult to keep up or provide maintenance during harvest, in addition to the capital projects that are going on. And sometimes we have contractors that are possibly in the way of routine maintenance that we need to do. Automation and technology is fantastic, but what it has equated to in the past is reduced staff support in various areas, which creates backlog and room for error. So an example that was provided to us is, you know, the automation within the track shed. It's fantastic, but that removed a body from the track shed. So when Ricky's trying to operate at the scales and communicate with John in the grading shed, without having that employee there to help manage the traffic flow, it just creates more room for error. You know, if you've ever been to the scale room where Ricky operates, and I refer to Ricky because he's here with us tonight. If you've ever been to the scale room, you can see the cameras, but obviously the amount of dust, it's hard to see. It's hard to see the bodies. It's hard for truckers to see those red lights and green lights. So a suggestion was made was like in peak harvest season, why don't we just put another body there to help with the traffic flow, help with communication? Seems like an easy fix, right? And just generally too thin on resources. We have a lack of coverage, potential for burnout, and really it's difficult to cross-train. We can cross-train in these slower months, but it's hard when you have expectations for people to work faster and harder during harvest season. So next slide, some opportunities. Again, when harvest it's a busy season, but just a reminder that came from the front line was the equal focus on all operations during harvest season, not just, I mean, it's exciting when there's a vessel there, but we have to be mindful that, you know, we have to continue operations corporate wide. There's trucks here. There's a lot going on. Rhonda was able to undertake some minor updates to the AgriSoft system for efficiency purposes, and that feedback came from Ricky and John again, is just, you know, sometimes an email communication is easier than sending a full table report where they have to find the numbers. So we can improve there. There was feedback across the board that we can improve communications in all areas. Employees need to be informed, and we need to eliminate assumptions. I'd rather over communicate than assume that people know. So we can do that with ease. Again, Jeff's team is fully committed to helping and working on equipment, but they just need to know. So just a general reminder to document and share maintenance concerns so they have ample time to fix. And a lot of maintenance concerns were brought forward. I've listed some examples: belt alignments, office heat, scale curtains, dust fans. This gives Jeff and his team ample time now, when those concerns were brought forward in January, to fix before harvest season. We heard loud and clear that the importance of involving staff in early concept capital planning. These are our in-house experts. They're the ones that operate the equipment, whether it's from the basement, the bin floor, the scales, the grading shed. They are in the job every day, so we need to listen to their input. So that will happen when working on our capital planning this year. And more in-depth cleaning, preventative maintenance, and housekeeping overall prior to the 2025 harvest season, which you'll see in a few slides of what's going on starting in January. So some of the threats, we heard LV controls. Obviously, technology is fantastic, but sometimes there's too many users on the system, which creates an overload and inaccuracies. So, you know, Ricky or John will be, you know, trying to input data, and they realize that nothing's typing. It's just kind of slowed. It's bogged down by the number of users on the system. We did talk to the Grain Commission when they were there for inspections, and I said, like, what are other grain elevators using? And LV controls is kind of the system that's the new best practice right now. So we just we're going to schedule them to come down and have an in-house visit with their programmer and just go over some of the deficiencies that we've found, and just try to figure out how we can utilize the system to its best abilities. A threat, obviously, the state of the grading track shed, the trailer, and the facilities, or lack of. They've been using a porta potty and road signage to help direct trucks. So as I previously mentioned, it's a priority for 2025 to start the design build for that and do some pre-engineering on that. I know Mike and Jeff are both committed to working with their frontline staff on improvements for that area. And just old infrastructure, as we heard when the minister, Rob Flack, was here, is that, you know, this is essentially, the grain elevator is a museum, and if we don't maintain it, we will lose it, right? So it's difficult to maintain. So we have a priority focus of continually maintaining and upkeeping. And then a threat, obviously limited resources, lack of cross training and no real kind of succession plan. We have a lot of staff that have been with us a long time. So when they choose to move on or retire, that's a substantial loss of corporate knowledge. So we need to start relying on that. Moving on, some of the priorities that we're working on right now, obviously the 2025 operating and capital budgets. We're doing a lot of training, whether it's health and safety or just corporate wide training. I'll speak later to the compensation, pay equity, and personnel policy updates. The strategic plan, we're going to hopefully launch in February with our consultant, Town Hall Consulting. We're working through some updates to the accessibility plan. And then I did some training on the port security plan. So I'm now deemed to be the official port, what's the proper terminology? Security officer. So sheriff, new sheriff in town. So we're covered on that. So just quickly, a glimpse into Q1 operations. So again, these are some pictures, some real-time photos from January of Tyler and Kevin. I'm sorry, Jeff, you're gonna have to help me here. What were they fixing there?
They're down
Yeah.
fixing the coupling between the gearbox and the input shaft of number 3 conveyor.
Okay, and then we have Cole here, which is cleaning out, and that is obviously a substantial amount of dust, but I thought it was worthwhile to see, you know, what they're dealing with post-harvest. So we're working on routine and unexpected maintenance and electrical work, obviously deep cleaning both the elevator and the annex. A lot of trainings taking place. We're reviewing and refreshing the standard operating procedures. Working through grain movement to prepare for spring loading as we do anticipate a few vessels as soon as the seaway opens end of March, early April. Yeah. You can move on to the next slide, Nat, please. We're working on continuously doing quality checks, purging and organizing storage areas, working through building and property cleanup now that we have 2 of our new garage and our new coverall. Sorry, thank you. And then obviously once we do the deep cleaning, obviously there's dust after the dust, right? So you have to continually keep sweeping. And we're also still running trucks. I think I spoke with Ricky yesterday and he was on, it was like 4:05 and he was on truck 49 for the day. So there's still, you know, truck traffic.
Good.
When the weather's nicer, we're going to be working on window repairs, greasing, painting, upgrades to the ballers. Sean and Justin are working on the GMP plus audit preparations, cross-training employees in various areas. Mike and Sean have been prudent to post you know, who's interested in training, cross-training, learning more. So we have some staff signing up. So it's a good opportunity to do cross-training, pre-staging, truck and vessel loading, aerator repairs, and supporting the capital projects that are carried on from 2024. And then just a quick thank you for your support, because with your support, it allows us to do what we do, and we look forward to continued collaborations with the township and supporting the community in 2025.
Thank you for your report. Great report. Questions, comments? I think our new general manager nipped everything in the bud. Go ahead, Mr. Ward.
I don't know if it's a new thing that you've introduced or if we were doing it all along, but it's sort of the first time I've heard that we sort of, you know, brought people in for continuous improvement ideas and stuff. And my experience, I have a lot of experience in the last, you know, several decades at my in production facility. And it's, you know, we always found that the best ideas come from the ground up as opposed to, you know, us, you know, sitting in an office and telling people how to do it is not usually the way that works. And, you know, you don't need to chuckle on that. I'm sure that's the case everywhere, right? But good to hear that that's happening anyway. So thanks
Yeah,
for that.
and there was, if I may, there was interest. We obviously asked the groups, and there was interest, so we're going to continue that on a quarterly basis.
Good, excellent, yeah. We, so just an idea, just to what for that. We have a system at work right now where, you know, if people have ideas, they sort of put it in, you know, in a hat. We have an electronic way to do it, but that doesn't have to be the case. And at the end of every quarter, there's just a draw for a little prize of some sort, you know, just to incentivize that as well. So.
Go ahead, Mr. Martel.
Through you, Chair, to the new Sheriff Leslie, I just couldn't I couldn't help but notice there, you mentioned getting input from staff and input from the employees often, and that is fantastic, like making the team feel like a team. You can't put a value on that. Thanks.
Mr. Smell?
Thank you, Chair, to the new sheriff, Leslie.
Oh,
My question or my thought was almost the same as Chris's, because the factory I worked in, like you sound like you have a great staff and a great union working with you. But we had an incentive that if someone come up with a great idea that helped production, they got a 75, that was back in the 70s, $75 for improving production. And everybody like tried to come up with something
Yeah.
all the time. So anyway, just, you don't have to do that. I'm just throwing that
no,
out.
that's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else on Leslie's report? Comments? Yes, go ahead, please, Mr. Mayor.
A couple of comments and a question and to the sheriff. I think the title might stick.
No, you-
On slide 2, we retain the previous GM as a special advisor. There's a second one underneath that on slide 2, says for January 2025. Can you explain what that actually is?
Sure. So as part of the capital project, you'll notice that the project that Kevin was responsible for, which was the track shed upgrades and the container loading spout. So when we realized that it wasn't going to be finished in December, Kevin actually was forthcoming and offered his support, because we had talked between Jeff, Mike and I that would have to basically pick his brain to determine what was left so that we could take on the project. So he did offer to stay as long as it took in January, to help support the continuation of that project. Because it was about 95% done, we felt as collectively as a group that it was probably easier if he, as opposed to passing the baton to us.
Sure.
So that's what that is for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Thanks for that. Just so that I know in my
Yep.
my head what that was. Comment on the I don't think it's actually a mission statement, but the Harvest 2024 circle about
Oh.
what it was like to survive harvest season. I
And that
think
was a
that's-
quote from one of our staff.
That's
Yeah.
it's kind of neat. Question. So under the weaknesses, limited resources.
Yes.
And can you define what limited resources is to me? Because I like this group, as long as I've been here,
Yeah.
this has offered up pretty much whatever we've been when asked. I mean, we approved a 10 million or almost $11 million budget last year. So limited resources for me is hard to kind of understand. So can you?
So I think what that comes from is essentially, so typically right now, none of the casuals have been laid off. In previous years, I think it was either January 1, they would have been laid off. But as you can see on the 2 slides of things that we're working on, we need that manpower. So we have a lot of staff that are long-term employees that have upwards of 6 weeks holidays, in addition to their 6 sick days, personal days, medical. So there's a lot of
to lack of
time
resources?
that we have our full-time staff that, I mean, everyone's committed, right? So during harvest, they take a limited amount of time off. So now between now and kind of June, July, before things start to amp up again, they're using their time or helping housekeep and do the daily functions, right? So I think in keeping those casuals on for a longer period of time is going to substantially help. So this too thin on resources would be kind of a historic problem when they were like, layoffs are January 1.
Okay. So by resources, we mean of the human
Human,
variety. That's not the
human.
dollar value.
No,
You need the
human,
dollar value to pay those resources, but the resources are human.
human.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And Town Hall Consulting. I've heard that name before.
Yes, so they did both the township
Oh, Rob.
strategic plan.
Rob
Rob
Adams.
Adams.
Oh, sweet.
That's just the
Fantastic.
formal name of his company.
Right. So when do we do that?
So
That's exciting. That's
yeah,
fun.
so I've had the kickoff meeting with them and they are actually currently working on a survey that will be launched actually next week, the last week of January, to staff and to council members of the Port Management Committee, just for them to get a baseline understanding of just some visions, right? And then we hope to do the first half day kind of strategizing session where we stick all our visions on the wall,
Yep.
similar to what you did for the council in late February.
Yep.
So we'll
Okay,
be
cool.
circulating some dates ASAP to get that in the calendar. The thought was that Rob and his team would come down. We'd do the daytime with our staff and then the early evening with Port Management Committee Council.
Cool. That's great. No,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. And last thing would be just a compliment on the PowerPoint presentation. It certainly feels 2025. And there's, no knock about the way that it was done before. I think both are fantastic. I love the PowerPoint. I love the embracing of the staff and making the staff feel like it's a team. It certainly, it looks like you're on the right track. So yeah,
Thank you.
well done.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Actually, thanks, Mr. Mayor, for opening up that conversation about the strategic plan. So will we also be consulting, and I don't know, maybe they're already on the board, Logistech, or I think we deal with it.
By all means.
Yeah, okay. And are we going to be reaching out to customers as well and suppliers to see how things are? Okay, good. Yeah,
Brokers,
so
customers, so-
that's later on in the process.
That's right. Rob, in our first kickoff meeting, he thought it was to get the base report, the base draft report would be prudent to consult the staff, our customers, our brokers, and then once we have that draft report, to circulate it to the external sources and the public, and then circle back to this group to finalize the draft.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. Great.
Any other questions, comments, Frank?
No, I'm fine. Thank
Sorry,
you. It was a
Randy.
very good report.
Thank you, Randy. Mr. Stitt.
Yeah, congratulations, everybody, on a great year, and Robert, who's not here, but Leslie, just to the threats on,
Yeah.
any idea what the threat is of no salt next year? Just if it got to that point where there's no salt, what's that financially to us? Any idea? Can you put a number? Ballpark, 500,000?
I can't really give a number, but we do have some wharfage shortfalls in place
Mhm.
with with a couple of the bigger salt companies. If they don't make their minimum tonnage, we still do receive revenue. So it won't be a wash if they don't bring any in. But I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But there is minimum throughputs. And it applies to the salt and it applies to the stevedore also if they don't meet their minimum throughput also. So there is some safeguards in place should we not get any.
Any other questions, comments? I just have one, Leslie, when you're saying that it's hard to train with the casual because they're laid off and then when they come back, it's a busy time. Maybe if we keep them, is there any possible way we could do some training in this January, February as we go on when the casual workers are there?
Oh, by all means. And Mike and Sean have already started working on that to circulate a list to see who's interested in what type of training.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay. Great
that.
report. Moving on to the Port of Johnstown investment. Rhonda?
Yeah, thank you. There's not a lot of changes on our investments other than the 12-month RBC came due on December 30th, which we moved over into the operating account. And the HISA did go down again. It's down to 3,775. I think it was maybe 4 in the third quarter, 4.25 in the third quarter. And the operating account itself too has gone down to 3.877. But other than that, we don't have any coming due until July of this year.
Questions, comments? Go ahead.
So Rhonda, I guess. So did we change companies for our HISA? I thought we had it as somebody else before. I was going to say Scotiabank, but I'm not sure if that's something there.
It's a Scotiabank HISA with one investment.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. I can only say that because we actually bumped into them and had a long conversation with them, over the weekend when we were at Roma this weekend. So anyways, okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, Mr. Stitt?
probably through the chair for, probably for Rhonda, but Rhonda, what's only cash on hand? Not referred to there back in in the other financial report, cash on hand, what's in there? Is capital in there? Is it
It's just our operating,
That's
it's
just
just
op-
our operating,
okay, so
overall operating account.
any non-used capital that sits outside of that?
Um, any spending we do, it all comes out of the operating account.
Capital or?
Yeah, yeah. It's split up in our, like our capital budget
Mm.
and stuff, but the actual like dollar amount is just all transferred through the one
Okay.
operating account.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and thank you. So I just want to try to, again, small brain, just want to try to get it right. So the one investment HISA at 3.775, there's 2.8 in at the end of, as of the end of the year. And then in the operating account, we have 7.67. So we have basically 10 million earning 3% or 3.5%.
Correct.
Okay, so then I'm gonna look up at Frank for a second. And that's a lot of money to have in the 3%. Frank, you're the one that usually comes up with the investment strategy. You know, we were earning 6.25% on that. Now we're down to 3.7. Have you put any thought towards I mean, you just saw this probably over the last couple of days like I did, but have you put any thought as to where that's going to go and how we're going to move forward on it?
I think the idea, Mr. Mayor, was that we would wait until the 2025 budget to see how much was needed for capital expenditures and then make a determination as to whether it should be invested and how it should be invested for the longer term. So it's really sitting there at this point in time to allow us some flexibility in terms of capital expenditures. Once that process is done, I think the real investment decisions come in. And markets are, as you can imagine, with the new president in place in the United States, it is hard to know what will happen, especially in this country, because you need to watch the dollar. If the dollar declines significantly, then it is possible we will see increases in interest rates. We had anticipated ongoing declines in interest rates, but watch the dollar, and that may determine what happens with our interest rates.
Thanks, Frank.
Questions, comments? Okay, moving on, Porter Johnstown investment, this is done. We're going on the H Master Feeds commercial lease. Leslie, go ahead.
Through the chair, would you like to make a motion for receiving and reviewing as we normally do?
I can, yes. May I have a mover and a seconder for 8A, B, C, D, E, F, and G? Moved by Mr. Martell, second by Mr. Smell. All in favor? Questions, comments? Okay, carried. Moving on to 8H is Master Feeds lease. Leslie?
Sure, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to authorize execution of a renewal to the commercial business lease between the township and Master Feeds, who are a fantastic neighbor to us and great to have in the community. So the lease itself was distributed to members of the committee under separate cover. So unless there's any questions, it's pretty standard. It continues the theme of the previous 15-year lease that we had. So the term is for 10 years with the additional term of 10 years possible to renew. The rent is calculated based on a square footage, and it has been updated, as you'll note on page 3 of the lease, for inflation rates. And so we're recommending that Township Council authorize renewal of the lease through execution of a bylaw.
You moving?
No, I want to comment actually. So I can move it as well, but I want to comment as well. So.
Okay, go ahead.
So in this lease, I mean, and you know, I appreciate the partnership we have with Master Feeds and want that to continue for sure. And so the rates are not really in objection, I guess, if you will. But you know, we had this conversation I think a while back, and at some point we have to find a way to insist that they do the paving of the property as well, because it really is behind on that. So is there a contingency that's going to be in here that has them doing that in the next, I don't know, 1 or 2 years kind of thing?
I wouldn't say not necessarily a contingency, but we've had some solid conversations with Tom Hutt, who's the operations manager, and we didn't feel that we should provide that provision in the actual lease, but at least provide them notice. I think at last time that it was discussed, if memory serves me correctly, it was discussed halfway through their term, so they didn't have enough time to budget for it.
I believe so.
If that was accurate, that I. So we've given them advance notice and we've been working with them on the water line issue. So there are discussions about maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I'd really like to, I think that was one of these, the problem is the opportunity is now, unfortunately, right, to get something in writing with them,
Yep.
at the same time, I guess, right? So I don't know about anybody else, but my feelings are that, even if it's a separate document that outlines that with some sort of a schedule, but I think we've talked about the condition of that road a number of times, and we almost stepped in and did it ourselves, and I think we want to
Yep.
try and avoid that from the county, the townships, or sorry, from the port's perspective, so.
Is that main water line, is that anywhere over there? Where that's coming out, where the pavement is in rough shape
No,
with the port?
no.
No way, okay. That's fine. I figured that we could maybe get it in there. I'm not really worried too much about it. They have been good to good neighbors, and hey, it fits hand in hand, left foot to right foot. So I think with maybe some just communications, we could do something with them. So that's my fate. That's my, yes, go ahead, Leslie.
I'm just, based on what Councillor Ward provided, I'm happy though to have a conversation once we deal with execution of this and come back with some more details of their estimated timeframe at the February meeting.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the lease? Good. Moving on, pay equally plan, Leslie. Oh. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Mr. Ward, seconded by Mr. Martel. Any questions, comments? Carried. 6:06, guys. Let's go. Wow. Going on and on. Pay equally, talk. Sheriff,
equity.
go ahead.
So this is not new to you. The outgoing general manager had reported on the requirement to do the pay equity process. It's under federal regulation. There was a deadline to complete this by September 4th, 2024. We did ask for an extension on this. So the purpose of this report is essentially just to let you know that we have completed the process and the draft has been posted for staff to review, and that comes up on February 10th. The deadline for staff to submit comments, after which time the employer is obligated to proceed with compensation back to the retroactive to the September 4th federal deadline. So it implicates 2 of our female job classes within the organization, and one position will be adjusted by $5.48 and the other by $1. So what I'm seeking from a recommendation is that the Port Management Committee recommend that the council endorses the Port of Johnstown pay equity plan.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, certainly happy to move that equal pay for equal work. I mean, that's kind of a no brainer in 2025, right? So happy to move that and support this.
Moved by the mayor, second by Mr. Smell. Any questions, comments on that? All in favor? Move. Thank you, Sheriff. Next, number 9, approval of disbursements of port account. Is there any questions, people? Need a mover and a seconder.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Ward, second by the mayor. All in favor? Carried. Chair, I just have a short, brief thing. We're in Toronto on the weekend.
Increase in notices of motion was before that?
I'm very sorry about that. Yes, no. Yes, council inquiries in motion. Go ahead. Is there any inquiries or motions?
Down here.
Sorry about that. We're moving on to our number 11 chair's report. Council went to Toronto on January 18th for Roma Conference for Rural Ontario Municipal Association. January 21st, we had 2 delegations that were important to the port. The first one was the Ministry Environment. It was a productive and positive meeting. Members of the environment and and conservation parks with the salt that's coming into our port. They realize they're doing everything, and they realize that we're doing everything in our power to help reduce the environment impact with the streams and rivers. Our CEO gave them an outline and the procedures that we had in place when the salt arrives at the port. The Minister of Environment and Conservative Import Parks are aware how important the salt is to the Ministry of Transportation in Eastern Ontario. So we left on a positive note that if there's any issues that might arise from inspectors from the Ministry of Environment, that, and we do not agree on it, we do have follow-up with our MPP, Steve Clark, who will be more than happy to work on our behalf. Our second one was also very productive and positive meeting. Minister of Energy concerned not having our new dryer on natural gas, and the gap between Johnstown and Cardinal and the village of Spencerville with natural gas. At the delegation, they're very surprised that we're not getting the support that we need from Enbridge Gas. So we left this meeting on a positive note again, and we'll have Mr. Clark follow up if there's any changes. That is the chair's report. Question period. Any question period? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break and go into closed session. So we got to close first?
You need to move the motion to go into closed.
Need a motion?
Yep, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Whitey Smale that committee proceeds into closed session at 6:08 PM in order to address a matter pertaining to Section 239 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically approved closed session minutes. Am I doing everything wrong?
No, go.
From May
Don't stop.
21, 2024, and Section 239 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal local board employees, specifically compensation review.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. We're going to take a 5-minute break before we do our closed session.
Okay, and I should be signing off now, I assume. So thank you, everyone. Stay warm.
Okay, Frank, you too. Get an extra sweater on, buddy. They only have 7 plows in the whole state.
Yeah,
You imagine the whole state of Florida? 7. Yeah, in New Orleans.
See the guys skating down the street.
Yeah. The guy on 1029 in Augsburg said they got 7 in Florida State. He says, I just saw 7 go by here.
Well, they probably haven't been yet.
Hey, we only got a short window here, guys. Then we got a big.
Well,
We're almost at, we're almost at the
Can't-
80s.
Let's get it done. Let's just get it. I mean, I think it's gonna be easy. The easy one. Why don't we take it in?
I don't think we'll be starting.
You see what we're doing?
Did anybody want hard copies?
I would like one. Is there, can we get? Are you going to?
5 minutes, but I just.
Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah. Sometimes I am. I'm gonna, is there any way I can speak? Just because I know what stuff.
John, is that your Mustang? You like it? Cool.
Hey, Rhonda, you're like, you're probably even information reading, you're like typing the path.
So that's it. That's great. That makes her happy. Yeah, makes her happy. You lost them, so that's when they- You said-
I'll tell you.
I love to print it.
Well, I can call them. One day, my 10,
I don't even open
go to Ottawa.
Well, that's good.
You guys, oh, wrong one. Let me do that again.
Second.
Moved by.
There you go. You guys want printed copies of your two fours or?
I just thought if you got it there.
I better take it if you got it. Better to have it. Maybe not have it.
To take an extra on every one? Not if you didn't instruct me to, just if you wanted to send me an email and then I can have it right.
Is there any cash in here?
Thanks, Robin.
Oh, bother. I don't know.
Candace.
You know what's missing. Different style. Thank you for that.
All right, moved by
When-
myself and seconded by Councillor
Go
Waddy
with
Spail, that the closed session meeting of committee does now adjourn and the open meeting does now resume at 6:34 PM.
6:34 PM.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Carry. Reporting at a closed session, the committee received the information about identifiable individual and gave direction to staff. I need, who has the mover, who has the committee, the committee approvals, received approvals of the closed session minutes dated February 2024. You?
That is the one, that is the one.
Is that the one?
May 21st. That's the
Sorry,
one.
May 21st. Yeah.
Moved by myself and seconded by Chris Ward that the committee receives and approves the minutes of closed session dated May 21st, 2024.
Thank you. Report our closed session, number 15. All in favor? Carried. Need a number 15 adjourned at 6:35. Second. All in favor? Well, not
Thanks,
bad,
guys.
6:35. Geez, I hate being late.
Leslie.
Leslie, thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay.